How's the sound? Can you hear me? Hey, can you guys hear me over the music? Hey everybody, how's it going? Today we're gonna try and address some of the questions that people have been asking about power, and we'll talk about fans because there's another question about fans. So I'm gonna actually talk about how to deal with issues arising from power differences. So right now I have a 24 volt power supply going into this instead of a 12. So it's 24 here and 24 here. Obviously it's voltage, ground, and then voltage and ground. So some of the issues that were brought up last night were what to do to run a 12 volt fan over here. And so the configuration default, I believe, comes with a jumper on 12 volts. So we're gonna, excuse me, test this. And so what we're gonna need to do is use a multimeter to find out what's going on. So I have one right here that I'm gonna place right here. Hopefully you'll be able to see it if I can get it at the right angle. I'm going to turn it on and I'm going to move it to voltage. Basically, I have two probes. I'll check on the chat in just a second just in case. But I'll show you first that there's no power. So right here, I'm going to connect to the ground and the voltage. And as you can see, it's nothing. So we're going to test that throughout and see what occurs. I'm going to have to move a little slow with this just because I want to be as safe as possible. So I'm going to actually energize the system with power now. it's going to be 24 volts. And so what we'll do is we'll first check the power that's coming through here. So we'll put a probe here and a probe here. And as you can see, it's 24 volts of power coming through. Next, we'll run it over to here. And so I'm going to be real ginger in the way that I do this, or work very carefully. Because normally I'd extend these pins out so that I can work with them with the jumper. So I'm going to touch first this pin through here. Hopefully not shocking my system. And then right here. And as you can see, there's no voltage coming through. So we're going to have to fix that. So I'm going to power down the system for a second. We're going to see if we can figure out why. Well, I actually know why. But essentially what happened is the system is not configured yet. Meaning that there's no power going through it. So we can't check it. So I've already loaded the firmware. So I'll take you over there to see what's going on. So I'm going to pull up front face over here. And it's just a regular default installation of the GTR. So I'm going to connect to it as soon as I plug it back in. And I'll look in the chat real quick just to make sure I'm not missing anything. So can everybody hear me in the chat? Because I don't see any messages like normal. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go over and I'm going to click on connect. And right now it's not connecting because I don't have this connected. So now it's connected. So I'll connect again. And as you can see, we don't see a lot, but I have a little command that I want to do here. And I'm just turning the power up on that particular connection for the fan, and I want to find out what the voltage is, so I'm turning it as M106 E3 S255. So I'm going to press enter and see what happens. And as you can see, a light lit up next to it. So I'm going to take the probes again and measure very slowly. So it's the positive lead right here, and then the negative lead here. And so we see that it's gone to 12 volts. So we know that it's working at 12 volts with this jumper on. So I'm going to power down the system and disconnect over here for a second. And I'm going to take this out for safety. I'm going to let it de-energize for a second. Then I'm going to move the jumper over to the other pins over here. Then I'm going to re-energize the system and measure again. So I'm going to take this, plug it in. I'm going to reconnect. And then I'm going to do the exact same command of M106 P3 S255 and hit enter. And that G code will enable the pin again, and we'll measure a second time. So I'm going to slowly move in here, touch that pin, and I'll touch the other one. And right now it says 24 volts. So that tells us that that jumper will actually energize the power on the board to a different power output value by moving this jumper right here, which we just pick up, we move over. That's all it does. So it's always good to have a multimeter, or excuse me, a multimeter. This is a Fluke. I'll put a Amazon affiliate link in the description for your convenience. And just so people know, no one's paying me or sponsoring me to do these tutorials. So that's why I have to tell you that up front. This is actually paid for out of pocket. So now that we understand the fan, there was another question about using the Blink M So with the Blink M, it's basically run off of I2C. Now I haven't hooked this up in a while, so I'm not sure how to do it on this board. But there's I2C ports over here that I have to find in order to work with it. So we're going to have to go over to the diagram. So let's see what we got over on our web browser. So I'm going to go to the browser, and I have it up already. I was looking at things just to see if I could understand them. But I'm going to go back so you can see what's going on here. So I need to find out the pinouts. So I'm going to scroll down here, and we have the BL Touch. Then we have a different type of bus here that's CAN. Then we have our I2C at the bottom. So it's 5 volts ground. Then it's PH8 and PH7 for pins. So we're going to have to match those pins to our Blink M. So I'm going to have to actually look up the Blink M because I don't remember what the pinouts are for this. So I'm going to say Blink M, and then I'm going to see if I can find a data sheet. And let's see what we get here. Hopefully this is what we're looking for. So that is our product right here. So it's going to tell us a little bit about it, hopefully electronically. So down here, it says what the pins are. So you have your positive pin, which is going to be power, which is either 3 or 5 volts. Then you have your ground, which is this pin here. Then you have your serial clock and your serial data. So we need to find out which is which by looking at the GTR. And they don't spell it out quite clearly. So we'll probably have to cheat and go to the pins file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to VS Code, and we're going to see if we can figure it out in here. So I'm going to click on the Explorer. I'm going to click on Open Folder. Then I'm going to browse to my Downloads folder and open up my first Marlin folder and then my second Marlin folder. Then I'll say Select Folder. Then over here, like always, we're going to go to the Marlin folder, the source folder, the core folder, and boards.h. And then we'll search on GTR_V, and that'll bring us to the board. So I'm going to copy that. Then I'm going to close out of this and go to configuration.h, search on motherboard, replace the ramps that's currently there. And I'm going to change the first serial port to -1. Now we need to go see if we can find the pins file so we can find an answer. So it's source, pins, and then it's one of these folders down here. I always forget what they are, so here it is. So what we're looking for is PH8. We're going to search by hitting Control F and say PH8 and see if we can find it. Now it's not coming up as PH8, so let's try searching on I2C. And so we have some stuff here. So I'm going to have to read through this because this board is not familiar to me. So there might be more than one instance of I2C. It just shows 2 right here. But it's not really giving us any information. So let's see if we can find those actual pins. So we have... Nope, that's not it either. Unless I'm misreading it, which is PH8 and PH7. So PH8. There's no reference of that, so let's try 7. There's no reference of that either, so the pin might not be active. That's a possibility, or I'm not seeing it right away. So I have to look around the board to see if I can get an idea of what's going on here. So while this is going on, let's see if we can find anything here. It might even be commented out. As you can see, fans 6 and 7 are commented out. In order to enable them, you would need to remove the comments. Or they forgot to put the pins in the file, which is another possibility. Or we're going to have to say what they are. So this is going to be interesting because I'm not sure what I'm doing. But we apparently have some answers. So I'm going to search actually in the Marlin firmware and see if there's any clue here. So I'm going to first go to the Marlin config.h and search on link M, and it's right here. So to support it, we need to remove the comment. So that looks like all we have to do. We may have to set it up for heating, but we'll try that out later. This might not go as well as I had planned, but we'll see if we can figure this out. That's for an LED strip, which we don't have, but it might be similar to a NeoPixel. So I'm just going to connect the wiring and see if we get anything out of it. I know there's a G code that we're probably going to have to set. So I'm going to first connect, with the system power down, the pin for 5 volts. I believe is this one. I'll check on the camera in a second. I'll bring it up. So on here, you can see that I've hooked up the 5 volts. So I'm going to connect the 5 volts to this. And so it's the positive on here. So I'm going to hook that underneath. Then I'm going to attempt to do the ground. And I try and match the colors to what they are. So the ground is the next pin over. Obviously, I got to look around the board here a little bit. And then run this in as well. That's going to be the ground right here because it's the minus. And then we have data and clock. So I'm going to go with 8 for data for now. So it's going to be this one over here. These could be reversed, so it'll be interesting. Hopefully I won't smoke anything. Then I'm going to plug this in where it says D. Now, I've done this once before as a tutorial. I think it was on the ramps. So the results are obviously different because they're slightly different boards. And then the final pin will be our clock pin. So these 2 wires may be reversed. So if we see smoke rising, we know it's not right. In which case I'm done with showing this and we'll try something different. There we go. So I'm going to figure out a way to prop this up without making it too dangerous. Guess we're just going to have to suspend it. Okay, so let's go back and see if we can find G codes for the command. Let me check on the chat real quick here. Now we got a couple people in here. AliExpress might not have the board. One of the places where I've ordered it is actually on Amazon. I don't know if it's still up there, but I can check real quick. Let me peek over here at Amazon. I'm not going to show you my Amazon screen, obviously. But GTR, I can possibly check by country, version 1.0. So Amazon in the US does have it. I can check foreign countries if you want. Let me see if it has the M5. That's the second board on the right. And it looks like the M5 is also available in the US. Let me peek into the chat. So which country is it, Jono? Oh, you found it on Ally? Okay. So let's see. I need to go over now to VS Code for a second and possibly a browser. So let's start with the browser to see if we can find the command. So I'm gonna type Marlin. Well, I'm gonna leave this one up actually. Good. Oh no, I'm gonna take this one down. Marlin firmware. So bring us to the website. Inside the website, I'm gonna go for G codes because I don't know what it is off the top of my head. And let's search on Blink M. I'm actually searching. It looks like I am. I don't see anything, so let's try LED. Currently that's not there either, so I'm gonna skim as quickly as humanly possible here. Because all we're technically doing is turning on a pin. So I might have to actually look around here for a bit. If you know the command already, you can post it. There's actually a tutorial I did on this a long time ago. But I don't want to bring up the tutorial and play it in here. But maybe we'll have to do that. So I'm going to go over to... let's see. I'm going to search on my last name. Blink M and ramps 1.4 I think is where it is, and here it is for I2C. So I don't really want to watch the commercial. I want to see if I put it actually in here for the command. Looks like I didn't. You can actually see when I did it for firmware. Ignition sequence start. So hopefully this will end quick. There we go.
Today we're gonna
I'll jump over to here, and this will tell us what the command is, hopefully.
The first thing we're going to do is connect to the 3D printer board for the ramps. Next, we're going to type the command M150 R0 U0. Remember, there's a space in between, and B0.
Okay, I think that's what the command is. Let's see how well it works out. Let me just jot it down. Apparently it's easier to take notes off myself than spend 20 minutes looking for it. So M150 space R0 U0 B8, or I'm sorry, B0. Now the pins might not match, so this might not work, but I'm going to build it and see what happens anyways. So I'm going to go to VS Code. Inside VS Code, I'm going to set up the actual build. So I need to find the board, so I'm going to search on GTR_V. That brings us to the default environment we need, so I'll copy that. Then I'll page all the way back up to the top. and I'll paste it over the old default environment for the other board. And then I'll click the checkbox, but first I'm going to clean. And I already have the drive in the computer, so hopefully we won't have to search too hard for that. Let me just make sure that I can see it while you're watching it compile, and then I'll check on the chat again. And of course you can't see it, so there we go. It looks like an SKR board, but it's not. It's actually the extension. This ribbon cable in between the two boards allows you to run over to more pins on the other board. So it's basically an extension of the board, so you don't get a super big one to work with. Because you have the option to buy it or not. But it's a really good configuration. It's just you need a lot of practice checking things before you cook them by accident, like me. So I try and show you all the thought processes that I go through in order to think about it. So now that it's done compiling, I'm going to go over to .pio, then GTR, right click on that and say reveal in Explorer. And I'll bring you over to my desktop in a second. So over here, I'm going to go into the Big Tree Tech folder. I'm going to right click on the firmware.bin and send to the D drive, which is the SD card for the printer board for the GTR version 1.0. So I'm going to pop this out and I'll show you on the workbench what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take this over here. I'm going to take out the actual drive. I'm going to place it in here. Then I'm going to actually connect the USB, connect the power. It's going to take a second. It looks like I've got it plugged in backwards, but it is illuminating. But right now it's just blinking different colors. So I guess it's a good sign. There's no smoke coming out of it. So let's see what we can do with this in Printerface. I'm going to go over to Printerface. And inside Printerface, I'm going to connect to the board. And then I'm going to try that command, which is M150 space R0 space U0 space B0. And it has 0 effect on it. So that tells me that we're probably not mapped to it in pins. Or I have the pins backwards, so we'll try that first. So I'm going to disconnect inside here. Disconnect the power. Then what I'm going to do is actually reverse the order of these two pins rather than these two, because I can't see them very well. I know this might not make a difference, but hopefully we'll see no smoke. Okay, so I'm going to plug it back in. It's still blinking through the colors, so it's made almost no difference. So I'm going to reconnect, and I'm going to try the command again. And there's no difference. So the question that goes through my mind on this, we power this down, is that I have a pin assignment issue. So we're going to have to go over and figure out what that pin assignment issue is in VS Code. Sorry, the camera blinked off for a second. So inside here, we got to figure out what the pins are. So this is going to be a little bit boring, but I'm going to have to go back to the pins file and see if I can find any kind of reference. This might be a lot harder to set up than I anticipated. So here are the pins, probably right here, and then the GTR. So it says something about I2C EEPROM. We're not using that. Let me look at the pins real quick here. So it's still 5 volts, ground, PH8, PH7. Those pins should be in here. I'm not sure why they're not, but maybe we could find a common pin that's similar and see if there's something going on like the BL Touch. So I'm going to search on the servo. So here's the servo pin, and I'll show you what I'm thinking. So if I go over to the browser over here, we can see the pinouts of PB11. That's our signal pin. So I'm wondering if that'll help us at least see the lettering change, because PH11 is what I want to find. And that's the servo pin. I'm sorry, the BL Touch pin for signal for when it touches the surface. So in VS Code, we're going to look for that. I just want to see if it's similar. So we're actually on PB11, but I don't see PH, so let's search on it. So PH11. So we found PH11. So that exists, and it's for the Z probe. So we got to find PH. So I need to scroll around here. PH8 or PH7. And I know they're not in here like we thought. This is so you can set your own settings if you want to change pins, by the way. But this might be a mystery for a couple days for me, because obviously I don't know the answer. I know how to do this tutorial, obviously. I've done it before, but obviously if I don't know where the pins are, it gets kind of difficult. And this board has more pins than a normal board, which makes it even more interesting. So we may have to table this until I figure it out, unless you guys know the answer, because they may have misnamed their pins in their pins file, but it's not looking good for the answers. Just checking to see if there's a common boards file like the other boards. So what I'm looking at is that I'm looking at the beginning and the end to see if there's anything else, but I don't see anything. So I'm gonna table this for now, and we'll figure this one out later. I want to show you the Diamond Printhead, so I'm gonna pull these out for a second. And I've shown you the Diamond Printhead before, but all I want to show you today is how to deal with the steppers on it. Somebody asked about this last night. So I'm going to pull out, and I'll show you what I have here. 3 PMC 2208s. Hopefully I didn't cook any of these. Want to orient them the correct way. And we're going to set these up over on the 3 here that we have. So these are going to be UART. We just want to set them up so we can move them with our hot end. I'm going to pop these out, hopefully not poking myself with the pick. Those are out. Now the default configuration is actually SPY on these jumpers, but once you get them out, it gets kind of easy. Okay, now that they're out, I'm gonna do here. I'll show you what I'm doing in a second. So you're gonna push this down. That sets the UART, and we're gonna do the same over here. Push that down. Then we'll do the last one right here. So it's basically the black set of jumpers. And that's all you need to do to set that up. I'll double check this in a second before I actually power the system, just because I have a habit of cooking things. It's not food. So I'm going to drop this one in. I'm matching the colors, by the way, for the rails in this case, for the TMC 2208s. But let's check in the browser just to make sure I'm correct. So in the browser, we're going to go back. I'll look at the chat in a second. We'll go to the manual, operating manual. Hopefully I'm on the right one. I'll scroll down very fast. And we're almost there. Okay, so this is for step dir that they're talking about. We're looking for UART, so it's a little further down. So UART mode. So for UART, it says this jumper. That's the one that I set for here, here, here. And those are E0, 1, and 2. So it's written right here very faintly on the silk screen that they're trying to represent. They're also pointing to it up here. So now that that's set, we're going to go back over to the VS Code. And I'll look in the chat now. So Bryce, I'm sorry, I gotta read what you said here. If GitHub actually had a demo for this, they may have it for the blink. Let's see if we got it here. So if I click on the GTR, I go to firmware. They might have something on the blink, but I don't see it. So I'm gonna search on blink. Okay, sorry. Let me search around real quick. Maybe I can find it. So if I go to, we'll try issues. I'll do blink M. It says open and close, nothing. Go over here again. We'll go to firmware. Click on the first one. It's just a bin. So I can't tell what's inside it because it's compiled and I don't want to show you how to decompile. So maybe it's in here. So let me search on blink. I don't see it there. So they're talking about an older firmware. Whoop, I'm on the wrong page. Sorry about that. No, I'm on the right page. It just jumped me over to Marlin, which is super weird, but okay. So what we could do is try and cheat real quick. It's the Marlin folder, source folder, pins, and then it's this one, I think. And if we go in here and search on blink, I don't see it. So if you could direct me to where it is, I can try, but I'm unaware of where to find it quickly. Obviously, they might have something over on the regular site. The projects overview. Packages, sponsoring, search, link M. Yeah, so I'm having trouble finding information. There is a topic, and there's issues. But we're no longer on the Big Tree Tech website for this. So I'm not sure where to find it, other than you guys directing me to where it may be. I mean, I could search maybe NeoPixel, but this is for a different board. I'm not sure how to deal with it, because I'm looking inside the pins file to see what's going on. So I'm going to go back over and start setting up the end stops, or not the end stops, the steppers real quick here, and then we'll see if we can address that a little bit later. So I'll show you what I'm doing. So on the workbench, I'm hooking up steppers. So this is going to be one stepper, and then I'm going to hook up two more. Hopefully not make a total mess when I do this. And this is going to be used for the Diamond Printhead. So the configuration might be a little fun to set up, or it might be a total mess. So let me get this out of the way. So the problem that the user was having was getting their steppers to work. So what I'm going to show you how to do is set this up. I just got to figure out where I put the Diamond Printhead. Here it is. So we've already gone over how to fix this for other issues. So we're not really interested in the Diamond Printhead. We just want it here so it doesn't throw an error message. So I'm going to hook this up to the first power. And of course, I think I screwed up on the thermistor connections last time I did this. I think it's the second one, not the first. I'm going to pop this out. And I'm actually going to loosen it if it's not already loose, but I think it is. And I'm going to use my ferrule connectors, which I showed you several times how to work with. Hold that like so. Take the screwdriver and tighten them down. So I can feel them tightening down with my hand. So they're both tight now, and they're in good. So I'm going to reinsert this, hopefully the correct way. So that's our power. Now I've got to look up where to plug this in for the thermistor. So I'm going to take it over to the browser so I can verify so I don't do it wrong more than once. So if we go back and back again, we can go to repositories and we can type GTR. We can click on this. We can go to, I think, pictures, and that's the wrong one, so that's for the M5. Go over here, we'll go to pictures, and then hopefully we'll find the pins. The PNG, I guess it's going to be this. So it's the second one being E0. So E0 is located right here. I'll show you what I'm doing. Get my mouse over. So E0 is the second one right here. So that's all set up. It's all connected. I'm gonna try and keep it away from anything that might melt. I'm actually not gonna really use it, but I'm gonna cheat on the power here for our steppers. We just get them in a range where you can see them. And the whole premise of this is actually to get them all to work or turn. So this one's gonna slide along the rail. The other two are gonna turn on the right side. So we have to go over to VS Code again. Inside VS Code, we're going to search first on motherboard because I think it's in that neighborhood on configuration.h. And scroll up a little, see if it's written there. I think it's just below it. So you have extruders. In this case, it's 3 because it's a Diamond Printhead. And then we have to go down and we have to find the single nozzle. We got that set. Then we need to go down and check on our thermistors. Now this is a mixing printhead, but I don't want to show you that because that adds up more complexity to this. It's someplace in here. So here we go. So there's different sensor types. I'm going to go with the default of 1, which is already set. So that in theory should compile. You will have to enable your steppers. So I search on A4988. And for this, it's E0, 1, and 2. So E0, E1, and E2. Now, they're different types of steppers. So they're TMC 2208s. And I'm highlighting 2209 for some reason. So I'm going to paste each one of these over it. That's for the steppers. Then down here, if you have like steppers, currently I don't. I'm not going to show you the process for this because I might screw it up. But there's a way to nest them for individual stepping where you'd say comma something else. But I'm not sure of the exact syntax of it. So I'm going to assume all the steppers are the same. Obviously you can tell they're different. Now I'm going to go over to the advanced configuration tab. And well, actually I'm going to skip the advanced because we don't need to really set anything. It's already default. So I'm just going to rebuild. And while that's rebuilding, I'll pop out the drive on the board and pop it into the computer to save time. Now it looks like I got a failure. So I'm going to try and rebuild again. If I get a failure again, I'll troubleshoot what it is, or try to. But the drive now is in the computer. For some reason, that secondary failure that occurs, I don't always know why that occurs. It, in theory, shouldn't. But does anybody have any questions while I'm working on this? Okay, I'm going to pop this out real quick by going to... Let me just minimize these folders up a little. .pio, build, Big Tree Tech. I'm going to then reveal an Explorer. I'm going to go over to the desktop and actually extract them into it. I'm going to go into this folder. I'm going to right click on firmware.bin and I'm going to send it to the D drive. Then I'm going to go back to the workbench. And inside here, drop the drive back in. And then power everything up and hopefully not make a mess out of things. Back into the wall. You'll see it's flashing with that tiny green light, hopefully. Might be too bright because of the sunlight. Now I'm gonna go over to Pronner. Whoop, that's not good. Hang on. Well, you guys get to see me burn something for once. So now you get to see how I figure out what I damaged. So apparently I can't see the replay, but I can see the smoke. This is what's known as letting the smoke out. Now I have a backup board, so it's not a big deal. But I need to know what I actually broke. So this is where I go into fault diagnostic mode, where I essentially try and figure out what's going on. So it looks like it popped by the steppers. So it cooked someplace in here. Not hot anymore because I de-energized the system. So I'm gonna pop this out. See what happened. So it looks like this chip cooked. And the reason it would cook, I'm trying to figure out what my mistake may have been. Doesn't look like I made an actual mistake. But gotta be something I did incorrectly. I mean, it was plugged in correctly. Kind of dangerous what happened. It might be something about how I powered this up, but I may have to put this under a microscope to see what's going on. But it looks like this chip just may have lost a resistor on the surface. Or the resistor is there and I can't see it because it's covered in whatever burned. Yeah, I think it is still there. But this is not good. So, the question is why it happened. So I'm going to take out the next one. Pop this out and see if there's anything else damaged. This one doesn't appear to be damaged. I guess that's good. You can see the actual resistors right here. Normally I don't run at 24 volts, so this is probably one of the reasons why I don't do it. But the good thing is everyone's safe, and you don't have to repeat the same mistake. So there's something going on with this board. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with the board, but it's not good. Let's check the last one. That one's perfectly fine. So, the issue seems to be with this board. And it looks like, for some reason, it wanted to cook in here. So I'm going to take everything off. Just for safety. And I want to see if I can examine what's occurred. Who says electronics can't be fun? So I'm going to take this off. And I'm actually going to take this board out and see what happened. Now I put a putty underneath, but it's not conductive. It's not even next to it. That's just so it doesn't slide around. So the question is, why did it cook? So I'm going to look in the chat and maybe someone knows the mistake I made or didn't make. But it's definitely interesting. So anybody have any thoughts on what might have happened? Okay, well, I'm gonna try a different stepper. This stepper may not work anymore, meaning the actual port that I was in. But it looks like I inserted everything okay. So I'm going to try another one Hopefully I won't cook it. And I'll take another one over here. I know this is probably not the smartest thing to do. Looks like none of the fuses blew. So let me find another stepper real quick. And we're just going to power it up and see what happened. And I'm going to prevent myself from using this in another tutorial by clipping off some of the pins so I know it's no longer good. So that way I won't use it again. I'll also double check my board to make sure nothing is in it. So I'll place that over there. I'll do a visual inspection of everything. And then I'm going to power this up without any of the actual motors connected. And I'll keep my hand on the actual socket. So it doesn't want to cook, or it hasn't cooked right away. Now, it might also be related to these jumpers that are on here, but they would cook right away. So I'm going to plug this in and see if that has any effect. Okay, that has no effect. So I'm going to pull out the power for a second. I'm going to see if the board actually is functional still by plugging this in. And I'm going to plug it back in. Now the assumption when this happens is your board is no longer good. Just keep that in mind. I know it's a horrible thing to say, but these things happen. Usually they haven't happened to me recently, but you've just seen one. So I'm going to go back over to Pronterface. And I'm going to see if the board actually functions because I heard it ding. So it's connected. So I'm going to try moving the stepper. So let me make sure I'm moving the right stepper here. So there's nothing happening there. It does say the printer's online. So the next thing I'm going to do is power it down for a second. Well, actually, let me try one more thing. I'm going to try M119. Everything says triggered, so that means there's no end stops connected. So I'm going to de-energize the board. Disconnect that. I'm going to make sure the jumper is fine. I want to make sure it's not melted. Well, it moves fine. So the next thing I can think of is, and let me look at the power here. I just want to make sure I didn't plug in the actual heater to something else. So I'm going to disconnect from here. I'm going to go over to VS Code. And I'm going to turn on debug to see if anything's broken. So I'm going to go to Configuration Advanced. I'm going to search on the actual PMC debug. And this will give us a clue if something's wrong. So there's two of these that we need to set. So I'm going to undo that one. The other one's called Monitor Driver Status. I'm going to undo that one. I'm going to recompile. While that's recompiling, I'll pop out the drive. And I'll put it in the other drive. And put that in the computer. So all I'm doing is turning on debug. I want to see what's going on. I'm guessing that the port that we're working on is not going to work. As for why this happened, it's news to me. I have a couple theories, but I have to check them. So now that that's done, I'm going to go over to, let's see, .pio, build, GTR, right click, go to reveal in Explorer. I'm just going to drop it on the drive real quick. You don't need to see me do it again. I'm going to do send to D drive. But the only thing I can think of is something with the blink, but I don't want to try and reproduce this error. So let me pop out the drive and go back to the desktop, see if firmware actually loads on it. Sorry, I was, whoop, now my computer is getting all goofy. There we go. Sorry about that. I just made a mod in VS Code to turn on debug. If you've watched my tutorials before, you've seen it. So I'm going to plug this in. Hopefully there'll be no smoke. It's loading firmware. It's flashing in the center. I'm going to go back over to Pronterface. I'm going to connect to it. Then I'm going to say, what is it, M122. First I got to connect to the printer. Now I'll do M122. And it keeps saying printer is not online. Interesting. So disconnect, reconnect. Okay, apparently I'm not able to connect to the board, so I'll disconnect for a second here. Disconnect for here for power. Reconnect power. Reconnect this, wait for a beep. And it's looking like this board is actually cooked after I loaded the firmware. Interesting. Wondering if there's any loose wires. I don't see any because I usually lock them down. There's no loose wires in there. This is where I'd be worried. So I'm going to power the system down and try USB. See if I can power it up this way. Okay, well, you've seen me toast my first board. Now you know what not to do, which I'm not sure what I did yet, but we'll have to do some analysis on this. So I'm going to take this out, take this out. I know the issue is probably centered around here. That's where I saw the smoke coming from. That's not cooked. That's good. So I'm going to try power. Nothing. Try power again. Nothing. Try the jumper. Or direct power. Power it up. And this board is toast. So lesson learned. Figure out what you're doing wrong and don't do it. Unfortunately, I don't know what I did. I know a lot of you have gone through this similar situation before, and it's not a happy one. But let me take up the board here and see what I got. Maybe I can answer some other questions now that you've seen me actually make mistakes somehow. I don't think I made a mistake, but who knows? I'm going to take this off the board for a second. This is just modeler putty that's used in museums. Never been conductive, so this would be new to me. But there's got to be something here that can be figured out. So looking on the bottom of the board, we know that it's one of these two steppers. Let me see if I can zoom in on it so you can see. So there's the area of question. I don't see any burn marks. Let me flip it over. I don't see any damage in there. That doesn't mean there isn't any damage in there. That just means I don't see any. The only other place I can think of is these things down here. But as you can see, I don't see anything. There's a slight mark right over here. That might be a clue. Maybe they touched. So let me find the bad stepper real quick. See if we can get a zoomed in image of that. If I didn't drop it. By the way, I have a backup board, but probably not going to do this today because I want to understand my mistake. And if I actually drop a new board in and do it twice, I'll be not feeling smart. There it is. So I'm going to try and zoom in on this, see what's going on. But there's something occurring. Zoom out. Move this over. So here's where the actual problem occurred. Let's zoom in on it. So we can see what happened on this board. Looks like the integrated circuit somehow had some kind of connection that cooked. I don't have a really good microscope to show you this, but you can see the chip is basically burned off the board. So I think the burn mark that we're seeing on the other board is coming from this board. But apparently I'm not picking out very much detail as to why it cooked. So I'm going to check on the chat, see what's going on. Yeah, unfortunately I might not do more tutorials today until I sort this out. But as you can see, it looks like the chip on the bottom of this board exploded somehow. So usually what I do is I stop what I'm doing and try and understand what the mistake may have been. In this case, I don't know what my mistake is yet. It might be something that's actually just a bad board. But unfortunately, I gotta see if I can zoom in on this a little bit better so you can see it. So I know it's grainy because I only have one lens I'm working with right now. But right there in the center, I'll move a dental pick over so you can see. Right here, this board cooked. I want to know why that happened. Excuse me. Plus, it kind of stinks in my room or my apartment right now. But that whole section of the chip came off. At least we know what steps I was following. As to why it's happening, I don't know. But that looks kind of dangerous. It looks like it popped right out here. That's super weird. But I have to put it under a microscope, maybe when I have a microscope to look at that you can see through. We might get a better idea, but I might have a friend do some analysis on it to find out what's going on. But I've never actually seen that happen before. But at least you know what I did, how I did it, and why I stopped. So, for those that are giving super chats today, I want to say thanks. It's probably going to go to a new board. And I'm going to let you go early today, and hopefully I can show you how to do this next time, or I'll make a pre-recorded video. But thanks for your time today, and sorry about watching the meltdown.